Hi, John Velie, CEO of OnlineVisas, here for another episode of Immigration Solutions during the coronavirus. Sorry, I stumbled on my words. I have to get my light here also. Too much light from the outside. John Velie, CEO, OnlineVisas, here for you with another episode of Immigration Solutions during the coronavirus. So I want to talk about 5 things in immigration today. I want to talk about our stats and outlets on the coronavirus, and then I want to talk about some other things such as dogs versus squirrels, how dogs evolved from wolves, and Japanese maples. Anyway, so let's get into it. So 5 things about immigration today. The first thing from immigration is just sort of a housekeeping piece that USCIS will reopen on June 4th. USCIS is closed for in-person interviews, things of that nature. Interviews if you're married to an American citizen, interviews to go in for anything that it requires you to be in front of a person, I guess asylum cases, some court hearings, things like that are shut down. So they'll reopen that on June 4th. Now, don't misunderstand it. Lots of things in USCIS are still open. For example, we're filing cases all the time on behalf of non-immigrant visas. You can file all sorts of, all of the green card applications in the United States, as long as the recipient isn't out of the United States. There's a presidential proclamation about a week ago that prohibited the filing of certain employment-based visas outside the United States for 60 days and certain family-based visas outside the United States for 60 days. Other than that, that's all reopened. Private message me or go to OnlineVisas.com if you want to get some more information on that. I see John Sheaf is watching. Good to see you, John. The second thing that is happening in immigration, in our list of things happening in immigration, is that USCIS extends flexibility for responding to agency requests. Different agency requests are called requests for evidence. They can have continuations to request evidence. They can have notices of intent to deny, notices to revoke, things like that. And those have been extended for in the dates between March 1st and July 1st. If you get any of those requests, then there's going to be 60 calendar days after that due date extension for you to answer that if you need it. Tui Osborne's out there. Hi, Tui. How are you? Good to see you. John Velie, it's a Monday. We're talking about immigration solutions during the coronavirus. So the third thing I want to talk about, actually, that was the third thing. First thing is that USCIS reopens. The second thing is you can still file cases. The third was the flexibility. The next one is the target of the OPT. So the OPT is optional practical training. This is a work authorization document given to students for them to typically use right after they graduate to go find a job. And then if they find one, then they can apply for an H-1B visa. And those can be 3 years long if they're in the STEM occupation. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Okay, so these are the techies, and we have a big need for techies, and these have been very, very important for students from India and China who come over here, bring that technological knowledge, and then go into our workforce. So the Trump administration has not been quiet. Hey, Brian Lowe. The Trump administration has not been quiet on utilizing the coronavirus to really implement some of the immigration ideals that it's had for some time that is really ramping up right now. So on April 27th, right, not too long ago, it's early May now, in a radio interview, the acting Homeland Security Secretary, Chad Wolf, indicated that optional practical training is an administration target. Tom Cotton's argument that it's basically asked about Tom Cotton's argument from Arkansas that Chinese students should be banned from studying in technical fields in America because they go back to China with that knowledge, right? Now, unintended consequences, right? So our universities like to attract the greatest students, professors in the world, right? China makes up over $1 billion in tuitions coming to U.S. universities, right? Imagine $1 billion is pulled out of that. And a lot of them wouldn't come if they couldn't work and they couldn't go into there. Also, China wants them to get educated here and go back to China, right? that's their plan, right? But with the OPT, then these smart kids that come over and study in our universities stay and work in our country. So, I mean, it's kind of like you can't be afraid of everything, right? I mean, are we just going to say that our universities shouldn't educate the world anymore because we're afraid that somebody's going to get smart in America and then go compete with us with another country? We really don't think on those terms. Really, it's they go into companies, right? People go into companies, they work for those companies, they learn basic knowledge in technologies, but it's with that basic knowledge they learn the secret sauce of how to do what they're going to do, and it's just a really xenophobic theory to do that, and this is really out of the mind of Stephen Miller. He's the chief architect of Trump's administration immigration policy, and he helped draft a bill for Jeff Sessions and Ted Cruz that will eliminate optional practical training and prohibit almost all international students from working in the United States after receiving a degree unless they first work 10 years outside the country. Well, people aren't going to come here. They're not going to come to our schools. They're not going to spend the out-of-state, out-of-country tuition if they cannot be part of the American economy. And we are in a global economy. We need them. We don't have enough great workers in the tech fields besides them. We just don't. There's not enough people to do it. Before COVID-19, we have a lot of cities in the United States that have negative unemployment rates because there's not enough tech workers that can do that. Why are we cutting our own nose off to our own faces? And who are we spiting? These Chinese kids, the Chinese kid that may take back the secret sauce to China to then beat us. I mean, it's just crazy. Well, what this is becoming is the political football it always is, right? So China is the enemy. China started the Chinese virus is the theme, right, that's going on here. So Chinese students shouldn't be able to come to the American universities. That's going to be the retaliation, and that's going to be the battle cry going forward. So what we're seeing is the use of immigration to do that. Now, again, other things that cut our collective nose off is that the Chinese students and other foreign national students coming here are not eliminating jobs for Americans. They're not. They're expanding them. And if you look at any of the research, it really shows that. So there's a lot of research organizations that have done a really good study by the University of Maryland and the Inter-Industry Forecasting Project said that contrary to claims that immigrants displace American workers, scaling back OPT, optional practical training, would cause unemployment to rise 0.15% by 2028. And a further illustration that immigration increases job opportunities for native-born workers overall. And I've seen a lot of data on this. The most conservative I've seen is for every H-1B visa. That's when they graduate from school. These kids graduate from school, and then they go into the workforce. That's typically the visa for a university graduate. That for every H-1B visa that's issued, it creates 1.8 visas for the native-born Americans, right? And if you think about it, it's because there's these tech sectors that are built, and you have to have management of the tech sectors, and those typically go to Native Americans, native-born Americans, I should say. So this is just really not a good idea. It is literally just more red meat to throw at people to blame what's happening right now on China so that the current administration doesn't have to have blame on it, and that's what's going on there. But on the last and fifth thing about immigration today, I want to talk about this really great act, the Healthcare Workforce Resiliency Act. It's supposed to be introduced today. It's a bi-partisan effort. Hey, Abdi, I see Abdi's out there. Good to see you. And Titus McGuire, sorry if I butchered that. Thomas Faggart, good to see you. And Brian Lowe. Talking about immigration during the coronavirus. And right now, so this great act, this bipartisan act, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans are supposed to introduce today the Healthcare Workforce Resiliency Act. And what does it do? Well, it's going to allocate 25,000 more green card applications, or 25,000 green card and 15,000 for nurses, 25,000 green cards for nurses and 15,000 green cards for doctors. Sorry, I just totally butchered that. Anyway, it's a lot of visas, right? And the really cool thing about it is that they went back and looked that there had been a surplus of visas that had not been issued between 1992 and 2020. So there is this, they're going to recapture these visas that are already could have been taken that weren't. So they're going to recapture that for the healthcare deal, and they're going to do some pretty cool things. So there's 40,000 green cards that are going to be open to doctors and nurses, and then they'll be able to bring their spouses and kids and stuff like that. And that won't count. They won't count against the 40,000, but they will go against the total uncaptured, which I think is somewhere around 200,000. So there's lots of these visas that weren't applied for during this period, and a certain number of them are going to be allocated this. They're also going to start premium processing for those doctors. And they're going to expedite having the consular processing done if it's outside the country. So 2-week processing inside the country for the green cards under premium processing, and then sent out expedite. Usually takes about 6 months to get it after there. So we don't know how quickly they're going to get them to the consulates, but they'll be able to do that. And since the consulates are closed, otherwise they can't be too busy. So that's a really good idea. And there's one really interesting thing about this for folks from India, and that's for Indian doctors. They're going to expedite and get rid of the per country caps. So big countries like China and India and Mexico and others, Philippines, for nurses, have these really delayed processing times, and those go away, right? So if you're a doctor and you want a green card in America, or you're a healthcare facility and you need doctors to come there, we have a great group of doctors that would like to come work over here, and we can help get them over here. So those are 5 things about immigration. I appreciate you tuning in for that. So let's go over to our stats of the day. JT Thatcher's there. I didn't see JT here in a while. Good to see you, JT. And Nicholas Rabaza, good friend and client. We're talking about immigration during the coronavirus. So we just got done with 5 things to know about immigration, and we're going to post this on YouTube so you can like that and share it. Please subscribe to that, by the way. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and we'd really like to have some more of those, and that'd be really cool. So let's talk about stats. So the world is opening. My state of Oklahoma has opened in part. Some cities haven't, like mine, but others have. And, people are just out eating at restaurants and doing all those things again. And I think we got to look at that with a bit of caution, right? My whole thing on all of this is let's be reasonable. Way too many political angles on any of this stuff. Take the politics away and just be smart. But here's the real data. 3.4 million people have the disease in the world. 239,000 died because of it, and there's 84,000 new cases today. In the United States, 1.1 million cases, 60,000 deaths, and 31,000 new cases. And let's look at it. Texas has had 3 straight days of 1,000 new cases as the state reopens, right? And then U.S. had its deadliest day over the weekend, 2,209 deaths in a 24-hour period. So, we're reopening because we are dealing with the economy is really suffering because of this. The stock market's not, but that continues to stay up. Even had a modest jump today because of tech stocks. S&P 500 at least did. But I think what everybody's hoping to do is that let's open it up, and hopefully it doesn't overwhelm our healthcare facilities. That's all that's really happening, guys. I mean, the federal rule that they issued a federal rule is that they should reopen after 14 consecutive days where deaths have reduced. Well, they haven't had one consecutive day of that. Well, maybe they have, but for the most part, it's just continues to scale up. Not saying that one day might not drop down below another. That's why they had 14, but we haven't had it, not even close, and we're reopened. All right, now look, man, I am a social animal. It's the reason I'm talking on my cell phone to you guys right now. I need to have human interaction. And we had a little bit this weekend. Pam and I, we cooked outside. We think that's a little bit safer. But we had 2 couples join us on Friday night, drank a little wine, ate, barbecued a tri-tip on the grill. It was wonderful. It was so much fun that one of the couples joined us again the next night. And then our neighbors who went to the lake needed to tell us what that was like, so we did that on the last time. But we saw one couple on 2 different nights and 2 of them on one. I still kind of prescribe to, I don't care if you open or not, try to keep it less than 10 people, right? And we went out and worked around the lawn. I think a lot of people are doing that. I bet we're going to have all-time greatest lawns in history because of all the people stuck there. But Pam and I went and bought 3 Japanese maples, planted them in the backyard, and that was really cool. But I tell you, the folks at the greenhouse is what it's called, the greenhouse nursery, said it all-time best spring they've ever had business-wise, and that place was packed, right? So we had masks on and just got out of there as quick as possible, but there was a lot of people. But most of them had masks on too, and but still, it's starting to reopen. People are needing it and that stuff. But I really enjoyed the Japanese maples. What a beautiful, beautiful tree. Very exquisite leaves. Pam and I went to the Rugby World Cup in Japan and with our friends Randy and Anessa, and we went to a really cool island called Miyajima in the Hiroshima Bay, and it just had jungles, forests of Japanese maples right behind our place that we stayed at, and always liked them. But we got 3 of them, 3 different types. They were very cool, we put a kind of a big fat Buddha under one, and then we put a peace frog that we'd had under another one, and then we put the third one kind of over a water feature with some rubber duckies in it, and we just sort of had these beings underneath them, and it was just cool, man. I mean, plants are awesome. Trees are the most awesome of plants, and they just, you can tell they're beings, right? I mean, they live. They can appreciate warmth just as we can, and it was really cool to kind of invite these new friends into our world, and God, they're beautiful. So really enjoyed that over the weekend. A great weekend, great to hang out with Pam and see some friends. So hope you guys are doing well. It's no longer really just sheltering in place. It's sort of a cautious easing out into the world, isn't it? Not for all of us. Not New Yorkers, New Jersey. Be tough to do that, right? And look, I'm not gloating that we get to do it and you don't. We're a small town and a small state, and it's just a different environment. But still, people are a little less than cautious here too. You can go to a lot of stores and people aren't masked up and they're not staying 6 feet back, and I think we're going to have another wave. That's all I can imagine. It doesn't make any sense that we wouldn't, and typically the second waves are bigger. I think what we're going to try to do is just deal with it, right? Keep the economies open, keep the stores open, and then figure out a new reality of what do you do when the coronavirus is in your company. Right? How do you segregate those workers? How do you keep people safe? And that's an important thing. Nicholas Rabaza asked, "Our consulates are closed? ? But just for visas, are they closed for EB1 interviews?" Consulates are closed for everything right now, except for emergencies. You can file EB1 visas inside the United States. You're not going to get your consulate appointment. The consulates have not issued dates they're going to reopen yet. We've seen the border of Mexico and Canada is slated to open on May 20th. So that's ahead of the June 4th opening date for USCIS, but we don't know yet, Nicholas, on when the consulates will reopen, but we'll keep you posted on that. I see Paul Medrose there. Chad London, a regular viewer. Thanks, Chad, for showing up again. I see Glenn Schoonover and my good friend Bert Lim. Bert is a excellent restaurateur. I think he speaks 6 different languages and has a lot of culture in a lot of different nations in Asia. And because of that, he has really perfected the fusion model for restaurants, and a really cool dude. So good to see you there, Bert. So John Velie here. I'm going to keep it kind of short today. Those are 5 things about immigration, stats on the coronavirus. And, I can't leave before this. I said I would talk about it, and I did. And I did talk about the Japanese maples, but I did not talk about the greatest rivalry in the animal kingdom, and that's dogs versus squirrels. A lot of people think it's dog versus cat, but it's really not. Dogs and cats often live in the same house, and they chase each other around. But the real rivalry, the real hatred dogs versus squirrels. And I don't know that I guess squirrels hate dogs because they run from them, and they can be tricky. They might toss an acorn, or they sort of just taunt them. And my dog Daisy, she cannot stand squirrels, and we did something that I'm feeling almost a little bit bad for, except it's too damn funny. Our neighbor Chris constructed one of those tiny squirrel picnic tables. Have you seen these? They're kind of a thing, right? So Google tiny squirrel picnic tables, but we have one, and he bolted it or constructed it on a little lift just above the fence that separates our two homes. And so he put some squirrel food on it, and finally the squirrels became comfortable, and now they've been eating at their picnic table, and that really, really angers my dog. She cannot stand it. She goes nuts, and she really just comes to attention whenever she sees the squirrel anyway, and so she runs after him and chases him up trees and stuff like that. But yeah, the dog-squirrel rivalry, one of the greatest out there, and not really a lot talked about it, right? I mean, there's some memes, I guess, about dogs losing their attention when they, they're paying attention and they see a squirrel and they run after it. There's some of that, but really to focus on the squirrel dog dynamic is really interesting. Whenever we take Daisy on a walk and she sees a squirrel, we just let her go, because we know she's just going to go to the tree. She's not going to run off anywhere else. So that's always a good time, and she's gotten close to a couple squirrels. She hadn't nailed one yet, but I'm on Daisy's side. I'm not on the squirrel side, although I'm really happy that we do have a nice place for squirrels to eat at their own picnic tables. That's all in line with positive thinking and, love all of God's creatures, right? So more of those. They'll go with the Japanese maples. And one other observation, right? I think all dogs evolved from wolves. And that's why the tiny little dogs, I can't stand tiny little dogs. They're neurotic, they lick. My daughters at their mom's house have a little chihuahua that literally can't hold its bladder and can't even take it for a walk. And that's because of my theory that all dogs evolved from wolves, and they've just evolved so far that their brains are just too tiny to be able to think like the wolf dog do. And we have some really big dogs, some Siberian Huskies that are next door to us, and those are very close to wolves. And so I think they're the smartest. Daisy is very, very smart, but she can't catch squirrels that well yet, and she hadn't figured out how to get up to the picnic table. So that's all in my theory of the size of the brains of dogs make them more naturally close to their evolved partner, the wolves. Anyway, some things to think about on a Monday. Enjoy your coronavirus pandemic best you can. Love your people. Take care. John Velie, CEO, OnlineVisas. Go to YouTube, like, share, subscribe.